Each person I reached out to at labels, they're just leaving me on scene. I couldn't believe that Troy Carter was talking about my brand. All of these people came up to me, like random people.
Keep doing exactly what you're doing.
I never went out my comfort zone this much in my life, but it was all worth it. Okay. This behind the scenes video is probably going to be the most exciting one. So you guys all know that I recently took a trip to Atlanta. You also know that I've had some pretty bad experiences while traveling across the country and making content. For example, in Toronto, I don't even want to talk about that, but if you want to watch that video, go ahead. I recently made a video talking about how bad my trip was to New York and how I just completely blew a great networking opportunity. I did mention at the end of the video that I just wanted to like avenge myself and make up for what I couldn't do in New York by taking a trip to Atlanta and crushing it at A3C Fest. I checked the comments, you guys all wanted an update video of what happened after A3C Fest. So here it is. This video is going to be about how I took a trip to Atlanta and absolutely crushed it at A3C Fest. First things first, this trip was only for networking. I didn't really care to shoot many interviews there. You know, the whole purpose of this trip was network so hard that these interviews end up just coming to me. So before this trip, I actually spent 2 whole weeks literally just studying everybody on the speakers list. It took me 2 whole weeks because there were a lot, and I mean like a lot of important people speaking and attending A3C. So out of all those people, I sent an email to literally every single person that I thought was even slightly relevant to me. That's like tip number 1. You should know some info about all the people that are attending, because let's say you ever run into them, you're gonna wanna have something to talk about, and people love talking about themselves. But I sent out emails to almost all of them, and I got a great percentage of people who were actually down to meet me in Atlanta. I was amped to meet a bunch of random people at the conference. Man, everything was just, it was looking great. So I arrived to Atlanta. It's a super long flight. Me and my brother pull up to the Airbnb, which, by the way, if you've been following our Instagram stories, which is at Kids Takeover IG, by the way, you know that this place was like an absolute trap house. I'm talking about holes in the wall. The washroom door didn't even close, which is a problem. It smelled like absolute shit and cigarettes, like a decent combination between the two. And there would be random people that would come hang out in our backyard at night and just like smoke. But look, as long as I could prepare for these meetings, go to sleep, wake up, and then head out to A3C, that's all that mattered to me. So I wake up super early. I think I had like 4 important meetings scheduled that day. So what I did was I just shot those people a reminder text, you know, hey, just reminding you about our meeting. It's gonna be in an hour. I'll see you then. So an hour would pass by and I would just get no response and I'd be at the location. So, you know, I would just check the DM to see like if they were active recently, and it would just say seen, like they just saw my message and they didn't respond. So I was like, okay, that's one meeting. I moved on to the next one, and like the exact same thing happened. I got to the location and I checked the message and it just said seen. I remember at this point I was like, okay, just calm down, like screw this, I'm gonna go get some breakfast. Each person I reached out to at labels and all these like higher ups in the music industry, I guess maybe they're busy or something, but they're just leaving me on scene, and it is kind of like discouraging because I spent a lot of money, that's one thing, and a lot of time to like prepare for these meetings. So the only different thing is though, over here I'm gonna be at A3C, there's gonna be a ton of people around me, people I don't know, so I'm not just gonna rely on those meetings that I set up. I'm just gonna talk to literally every single person I can, and I can't just let those people leaving me on scene like stop me from networking, you know? Because you can leave someone on scene on Instagram, but you can't leave them on scene in person, right? So, and that's just the truth. You cannot leave me on scene if I'm talking to you in person. Now, here's where things really get interesting. At A3C, there's all these different panel events where the big dogs in the media industry speak at, and there's gonna be a huge audience. They give a lot of cool advice to artists, producers, video creators like myself, but even more importantly, at the end of every panel, they actually do this thing where they have the mic and they give it to a maximum amount of 3 audience members, and they let them ask a question out loud to the panelists. And let me tell you this, it's really competitive. I didn't know that going in, but it is really competitive. I remember the first panel, there were some really important panelists talking, and I was like, you know what, let me just try this out. I'll put my hand up and I'll ask a question. I was standing somewhere in the back or in the middle, and basically I didn't get chosen because the people that did were really pushing to get chosen, and they were just trying really hard to stick out. I remember this one guy, he literally wore a Naruto costume just to stand out. I was like, damn, if I want to get picked, like, I really have to go outside my comfort zone. So going into the next panel, I was like, okay, you know what, let's try something different. Let me just line up early and I'll get to the very front. And this time I'm not just gonna go like this. Like, I'm gonna put my hand up really high and be like, oh, like, pick me. And what had happened was, it was time to ask the questions, and I actually got chosen. So I kind of froze up and I was like, but then I ended up getting myself together, and I basically gave a rundown of what Kids Takeover was. I mentioned the biggest artists that I've interviewed. I definitely mentioned Zaytoven because we were in Atlanta, and I mentioned that I was 19 years old. I did this all to like hustling through the internet, like DMing a bunch of people, right? So my question to you guys though is, do you think that there's a way to leverage your age when it comes to talking to people in like different artist teams? I'll answer this. The important part though is that the panelists were mostly impressed by the fact that I was 19 years old and I accomplished all of that.
People wait, a long time to follow their passion, and I think we've got a head start because we're young and we decided off bat, like, we know what we want, you know what I'm saying, like, we're gonna gravitate to it, we're gonna do what it takes.
So right off the bat, I got all of their respect and attention. I was wearing my Kids Takeover hoodie. They definitely remembered me after that. Plus, the whole crowd was kind of cheering for me after I gave my pitch. I'm like, okay. So the moment the event ended, I did not expect this. I had people swarming me, like legit swarming me, saying how much they respected what I did at my age, asking how they can get involved with KTO, what's my Instagram, what's my YouTube channel. It was so crazy. Like, I never had people fighting over the chance to talk to me. But dude, all of these people came up to me, like random people. Some are really cool. Some worked at Sony, some worked at Facebook, and some are artists, some are producers. And this one guy, like, this really stuck out to me. I didn't tell you this yet, but he was like, dude, I just want to let you know, like, I respected what you said so much because I'm also young like you, and like no one has the courage to do things like that. So I just want to say, like, big respects, and you literally like motivated me to, like, work harder myself. So I'm just some kid from Vancouver, and I felt like a local celebrity somehow. I remember one of the panelists, his name is Mitch, and he works at BMI. He pretty much came up to me and said that, yo man, like, it was so hard to get to you, everyone was trying to talk to you, but I just wanted to say, I can't believe you're so young and you had the courage to come up and, give your pitch like that. We definitely gotta stay in contact. And he said that he really wanted to get involved somehow and buy a Kids Takeover hoodie. I told him the truth, like, we're actually not selling any right now, it's just for the team members. And he was like, wow man, like, I can't believe it, because me and Troy Carter were actually talking about how you're so young and you started this brand and how the hoodie just looks so nice. And yo, I'm not sure if you guys know who that is. Google Troy Carter is, maybe Google his net worth or like the people he's worked with and just how respected he is, and then you'll understand. Like, I couldn't believe that Troy Carter was talking about my brand and my hoodie. At that moment, once he said the Troy Carter thing, I was like, this is gonna be my strategy going forward, to not only be put on the radar of these music industry professionals, but to get brand recognition from the audience. Like, there's so many people in the audience. I spent the rest of my time at A3C lining up super early to every single event, getting to the very front seats, and then before it was even time to ask the question, I'd have my hand up like this, and I'd be like, oh, like this, pick me. And I would get picked almost every single time.
How do I get on a label's, like, press run when their artist comes to a city like Vancouver, which doesn't have like an established hip hop scene?
When you guys are looking to get your artist interview, right, in like the West Coast or places like that, what are some differentiators you look at from these media outlets?
Are there any like revenue streams that you tried that didn't work for you and some that did?
Do you guys think that you can leverage your age when reaching out to management teams of artists?
I went from being backstage in New York at a concert and being so scared to just talk to the person next to me.
Come here. Dude, just do it.
To being in front of an audience in Atlanta and pretty much making a fool out of myself. I never went out my comfort zone this much in my life but it was all worth it. I felt like a local celebrity. Anywhere I would walk after the panels, people would be like, hey yo, that's that Vancouver kid, yo, that's Kids Take Over. And so I did this whole question thing at the panels. I kept on repeating this strategy with panelists like Kevin Lyles, the entire label behind JID, 21 Savage, Earth Gang, you know, the founder of Dead End Hip Hop. Man, I even went to this one really packed event thinking I just get to see Gary Vee's speech. Turns out I ended up talking to Gary Vee as well. But look, that's a whole different, long, amazing story. Let me know if you guys want to see a video just about what happened with me and Gary Vee. But look, I even figured out that the panelists would stick around for like 1 or 2 minutes after the talk before heading backstage. So if I'm the person that's sitting right next to the stage, it's guaranteed that I'm gonna get to talk to them. So that's exactly what I did. I figured in that extra 20 seconds I got to talk to him alone. Why not take it a step further and build a real relationship? This was B-Dot from the Rap Radar podcast, and I was like, yo, let me know if you wanna do an interview on my platform. And since he's not some huge artist and doesn't get interviewed that often, this actually looked like I was giving him an opportunity. So from there we exchanged phone numbers and we actually talk now. Other people included a VP at Universal Music, A&R at Atlantic Records, and I remember that this one panelist, he was a rapper named K Supreme, and he finished his talk and I was like in the mindset of, I'm gonna go and ask him for an interview. And man, remember I told you there was this dude dressed up in the Naruto costume? So he ended up being a rapper and he did absolutely anything he could to get first in line to talk to K Supreme. Between me and him, it was a battle for who's gonna get first in line, but at that point I kind of accepted defeat and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna wait right behind him, and that way I'll at least be second to talk to K Supreme. But so I waited for the perfect moment where they would stop talking and then I slid in. And the first thing I said to K Supreme was, look dude, I'm not a rapper. And the reason I said that is because A3C is filled with like 95% rappers. I think at some point it gets a little annoying for these panelists to keep talking to unknown artists. So I felt like I stood out by having that as my first liner. And I was just like, yo man, I'm 19, I've interviewed Shoreline Mafia, Sa Baby, people in ASAP Mob, and I'd love to do a sit down interview with you. And he agreed just like that. He was like, yo man, 1 second, let me call my manager. Manager was like, yo man, we need to exchange contact info. Let's get this interview done in the next week or so. It worked. I waited my turn and yo man, I showed him my YouTube channel. I quickly gave him the rundown how young I am, and dude, he said, yo, I'm definitely down to do it. Believe it or not, this also happened with people like Carlay, who is Young Thug's girlfriend and also an artist. But I literally just found the courage to go up to them and straight up ask for an interview, and it happened just like that. Look, I really want to emphasize to you guys, whether you go to a networking event and get a chance to speak on the microphone, or you just happen to run into your idols on the street, number one, it's totally fine to just be in the audience or observe from afar and soak up knowledge. But if you really want to make something happen for yourself, if you're that passionate about it, go out of your comfort zone and legit make it happen. The only person stopping you is maybe a security guard, but mostly yourself. 2, once you actually get that opportunity to speak, make sure that you really have work, like good work that you could present to them and have them be impressed by. If you feel like you haven't made your best content, or you can definitely do better or get your numbers up, it's totally fine. If you're not at that stage, you don't have to ask a question. 3, and this one's really important, have your 15-second pitch ready. Think about it as an ad you'll see on Instagram just scrolling through your feed. You need to have the most jaw-dropping first 3, 4 couple seconds for people to actually pay attention. The same thing happens for when you're talking to someone that's like really high up. You know, they want to be impressed right away. I can't tell you the amount of random, like unknown people, like no offense, who had a lot of passion, but they would grab the mic, ask a question, except their question would be something like, can I shake your hand? Or can I get that 10 a.m. meeting tomorrow? I'm not kidding, this actually happened at a special invite panel which had Troy Carter and A Reid at it. Troy Carter and A Reid, again, do your Googles if you don't know, 2 of the biggest names in the music industry, and everybody in the crowd was like famous or super high up. I remember putting my hand up so high because I really wanted to ask a question and give my pitch to them. knowing that there's a lot of other famous people at this event, and those two people with those two questions got picked instead.
Reid. Can I shake your hand, brother? Can I shake your hand, brother? Alright, let's get it. That's the first start. Can I get a little clap? Hey, there we go.
On top of that, like, not to get ahead of myself because I'm nobody, but it's like, what have you done for them to give you a 10 a.m. meeting? You need to have work, you need to have a reason, and you need to present that reason right away. Again, I'm not getting ahead of myself, but look, if that was me and I gotta ask the question to LA Reid or Troy Carter, I think I would have been in a very different position in my life right now. But look, I didn't let that stop me. I was still asking questions at every single panel. I got a lot of leads. I'm talking about publicists, A&Rs, people at record labels that really want to collaborate with Kids Take Over and get me artists to interview, which was my goal all along. And man, I just want to say that going to A3C was so worth it. I recommend anybody who's really passionate and wants to make things happen in the music industry to go out to events like these and make those connections. If your city is limited and you can't properly reach all these industry professionals through social media, I recommend save up your money, go out to these events, go get in front of people's faces and show them why they should care about who you are. But the experience with Gary Vee was the coolest part about A3C. Let me know in the comments if you guys want to see that video with Gary Vee. But look, that's the end of this video. I really appreciate you guys watching, and my name's Arshan from Kids Take Over, and you guys are watching Behind the Scenes. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching that behind the scenes in Atlanta. I know it was super long awaited, but I feel like that was such a pivotal moment for Kids Take Over. It really just showed me that just by talking to people, people are gonna resonate with your stories so much. And if you guys, in whatever you do, if you just go the extra mile, like, the sky's the limit for you, you know what I'm saying? But it's time for the top comment, so let's see. Dave Marks commented on the last video. You put me onto him and he is dope. Yo, Dave, I'm super glad. And yeah, he's referencing our Suave interview, by the way. So go check that out if you haven't, and definitely hit that subscribe button for me. It helps out the channel a ton, and I don't want you to miss any new videos.